You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
About this issue of this school to prison pipeline, of course, it is a disturbing trend that we have seen for quite some time happening all across this country, where you have resource officers, where you have people who are in these schools who are in essence criminalizing our children. My next guest, she wants to stop that from happening. She is Aisha Braveboy. She is the Prince George's County State's Attorney, and she wants to reform this system. We certainly thank you for joining us right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So, what's your plan?
So our plan is already in motion. We have embarked on a reform of our youth justice system. We're working with our school system as well as our law enforcement officers. In addition to that, nonprofits in our community and also our medical community to really provide alternatives for young people who come in contact with the criminal justice system. Although our first priority is to prevent the contact altogether. And so when we looked at our county led the state with the largest number of in-school arrests, which is a big problem because that means that young people are coming to school for an education, but oftentimes leaving in handcuffs. And so what we looked at is, why are these young people getting arrested? Some of these incidents start out as classroom management issues. They're not criminal issues. They're classroom management issues. Maybe someone's falling asleep in class or, being disobedient. But it escalates when a school resource officer is called into that classroom, because school resource officers are sworn police officers. And so when they respond to a scene, they're responding as police. And when those incidents escalate, oftentimes it ends up with young people being arrested and detained and then sent to our office for prosecution. And so what we've looked at is alternatives. Number one, to having that contact at all. If the issue is not a criminal issue, a school resource officer or a police officer should not be called into a classroom to address what may be policy issues within that school. In addition to that, if a young person is committing a criminal act, we have to look at the seriousness of that act. And if it is not serious, if a weapon isn't involved, then we can find alternatives to prosecution. And that's what we're doing now. So we have a big diversion program that we're working on. We have community-based nonprofits that are working with us to provide those alternatives. They provide mentoring, they provide counseling to the young person, and oftentimes their families need counseling. And so it's been very successful so far, and we look forward to continuing those efforts.
But see, this is the thing that I keep saying to people. Look, when you put a cop in a school, a cop is going to do what a cop does. And I think the real issue here is that and let me just go ahead and say it,
sure.
And I don't care what anybody says, we got some punk-ass teachers and some punk-ass principals and some punk-ass administrators who don't know how to deal with kids. I remember I was visiting my niece's school in the Dallas area, and so I'm going to see her, and so there's two white female teachers. They're talking to this young black kid, and he's giving them all kind of mouth. And I literally said, "Hey, who the hell you think you're talking to?" And he looked at me, and I began to sit and talk to him. I said, "You are going to learn how to respect these teachers, how to talk to them." So I'm sitting there admonishing him. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. Yes, what? Yes, sir. And I look at them and I'm like, I need y'all to bone up as well. And look, we got people in classrooms who are scared of students, elementary school kids. So they're calling the cops.
I don't disagree with you. And in fact, what we have found is that there's not just a school to prison pipeline, but also a preschool to prison pipeline, because so many preschoolers get suspended or even expelled from their preschools, and you're thinking, what could a 4-year-old be doing to get suspended or expelled? But see, that starts the trajectory of them going into the criminal justice system as opposed to furthering their education. So while I agree that there are ways that we can enhance how we train our teachers and have more cultural competency and ensure that we have more diverse teachers or teachers who are more reflective of the populations, I do think that there are legitimate concerns that teachers have in the school system. I think that what I look at is how teachers respond to it. And our Teachers Association is actually looking at ways that they can get better training so that they are not having their kids who are in their classrooms end up being arrested. So I do believe that, at least I can only speak for Prince George's County Public Schools, that we do have school teachers and administrators that want to do the right thing, but they also need the tools, they need the training, they need the alternatives, and quite frankly, they need the support of folks like me to say we understand what you're going through, that we want to be a partner with you, but that we have to believe in our young people. They are our future. To me, they're the next state's attorney, they're the next governors, they're the next business leaders. And if I look at a young person like that, if I think of them as someone who is going to take care of me one day, then I'm going to invest my time, my resources, I'm going to go to bat for them. But if we think that they are throwaway children and that some children just won't make it, then we react to them differently. And I don't believe that there are any throwaway children, and that's why I'm working so hard to reform our system and getting all the necessary partners on board.
Let's see here, my panelists, you got any questions?
I do. I'm a Prince George's County native. I was educated in PG County Public Schools through graduation, so I'm actually glad to hear this. So I had a couple questions. One is, so how can we use wraparound and supportive services to divert children out of criminal justice, and then out of the criminal justice system? And then are there different needs for girls and boys? Because we also see that girls are being expelled and caught up in these disciplinary nets earlier as well.
Absolutely. You know, we work with community-based nonprofits. So like, instead of our office prosecuting a lot of these cases, what we're saying is we're going to divert these cases. And we divert them to community-based nonprofits that we believe can assist those young people in making better choices. Some of them are gender specific because there may be needs that, let's say, a young woman has that they need a specialized type of program for, and the same with young men. And so our goal is to place them in the appropriate care setting and give them all the tools and resources they need to be successful. You know, it's interesting. I learned, years ago that we have, pretty sizable homeless population. So children who are housing insecure, and also children who are food insecure, who don't eat every day. And so when they come in the classrooms, they are angry, they are upset. Or young people who experience violence in their home or witnessing violence. How do you think they feel when they come to school in the morning? They're not ready to learn because they're dealing with all the trauma and tragedy that occurred the night before. And so we have to understand that as society, and we cannot continue to criminalize our children. We have to treat them like children. And some of them are dealing with adult issues. These are adult issues that their young minds can't process. Their parents can't even process it some of the times. And so we are not throwing the book at them. We are working to give them an opportunity to get it right.
Just to bounce off of what Roland said,
Yeah.
I agree with Roland on this totally, because my dad was a cop and my mom was a teacher. I just have this overwhelming sense when it comes to school resource officers that somewhere along the line somebody decided, I don't want to really deal with this issue. I want somebody else to deal with it, so let's not dial 911. And given that so many of these schools have metal detectors, they do have ways of screening people, screening the kids before they come in.
Some do.
Okay, and some don't. Okay, so I think Virginia has the worst rate of referral for the school to prison pipeline, but I go back to just the question of, do we really need armed law enforcement in our schools? And doesn't that set a tone to the kids that at an early age that these people think I'm dangerous and problematic, and therefore there is a armed person here around me? There's just something about it. When did we get to this point where we decided that we needed to have cops in the schools and that was the new normal?
Yeah, look, you know, these are policies that the school system implements. I think we also have to recognize that we've had pretty significant mass tragedies at our schools, and so if we don't have a way to quickly have resources there to protect students, I think there'll be criticism that way as well. I think really the question is, how do we utilize these school resource officers, and how do we train them in being trauma informed and understanding that a young person may be talking out their mouth to you, but that's because they were talked out their mouth to the night before. That's how they know to respond when they're angry or upset. And so that's kind of what we're working on in Prince George's County. And we are looking to be really a model for the country in how we utilize law enforcement, but also how we treat our young people and what we think of them when we see them.
Thank you.
So we have I think it's 2.5 million young people who go through the juvenile justice system every year. And Roland had started us off giving us an example of how he engaged when he was in one of the schools. I'm curious, what role do you see parents, and what do we need to do in that space, and also our seniors, our elders in our community who could also be a great resource?
And I appreciate you asking that question. You know, for about 15 years, I was general counsel for what's called the community CPAC. Now I'm forgetting the name because I'm getting older now. I can say that I'm the Community Public Awareness Council. I apologize. The Community Public Awareness Council. It's a community-based juvenile diversion program, and we required the parents to get training as well. And instead of penalizing the parents and making them feel bad, but we said, look, we're all in this together, and it's very different today raising children than it was 20 or 30 years ago. And there are all these tools that are now influencing children, and social media and their telephones that are telling them things that you're asking, like, where did you learn that? Well, they're with that phone 24/7. So that phone has more influence than the family and the parents. And so we teach our parents that they have to actually spend quality time with their children. They actually have to train them up. They have to raise them. And that, yes, we understand there are a lot of single parents. There are a lot of parents who are stretched, even in two-parent households, because they're working just to make ends meet. But that's where the community comes into play. So now that same entity has developed what's called a MOMS program. So they've asked mothers and grandmothers to be a part of that, you know, training experience, and also a place where young people can come and get some, you know, additional care and assistance that they may need. Because sometimes parents don't know it all, or parents haven't been parented properly. And so instead of, again, being critical of them, let's work together. It takes a village for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Again, so Aisha, Braveboy, we shall appreciate it. Thanks so much, and good luck with it.
Thank you.
You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.